What drives you, exile? Is it justice? Revenge? Honor? No. It is power.
What is up, you guys? Kogi here again, this time showing you my 3.3 ritual POBs that I have made to league start with in this league. Now, the issue is, of course, I am not a god. I cannot make 10 builds in one spot in the span of 2 days. But what I can do is I can go to standard and show you how these builds will perform and how they look before you actually go and decide for yourself, hey, do I want to play this? And the first one on my list was actually an Assassin Glacial Cascade cast on crit bow character on top of using HYDROSPHERE. Now, HYDROSPHERE was introduced in 3.13 and it looks very, very cool as one of the new orb types or tags that they added to skill gems. But upon looking at the damage, it didn't seem that great, and it did look a little bit clunky in terms of how it would function. But upon testing it, it's actually insane for clearing. It looks really, really cool, and I'm going to explain why. But the gist of the build is that it's using Glacial Cascade and HYDROSPHERE. So if any point in time HYDROSPHERE just feels like it's not worth using anymore, or you're just kind of sick of it, you can always just use dual Glacial Cascade to get a lot of damage, and for sure that is going to work as an end game build, as I've done it before in the past. So with that, guys, let's go right into the showcase of the build, and then we'll go into the POB and cover all the details, and I hope you guys enjoy. And before that, don't forget that I do stream on Twitch every Saturday, and Friday at 8 p.m. usually around there if you guys want to catch around seeing how these builds are made. I am leveling my Elementalist Divine Ire Ignite build, and that will be showcased in a few days from here. That's probably the next video, so you guys can see what that build's all about. And on top of that, guys, you guys can join the Discord and other things if you guys want to see the other builds that I've made before the video comes out and things like that. Either way, let's get right into the character. Now we're here. This is actually my ice character that I made back a few leagues ago. It's an assassin, a cast on crit, also bow character, and it was using Ice Nova and Frostbolt. It was an absolutely fantastic build. I do have it on my YouTube, but it's quite dated now. And since it has all the ice and cold damage modifiers and damage types of uniques and that I need, I decided to then modify it to a Glacial Cascade and HYDROSPHERE because it does convert to cold. Well, of course, depending on certain things. Let me explain. So the helmet that we're using, of course, with any cast on crit bow build, is an Ascendancy chant. It's basically the upgraded version of an Ascendancy circlet using this Gameless Feather Prophecy. And what it says is that you trigger a socketed spell when you attack with a bow. In this case, since we're using Barrage for cast on crits, we will then proc a HYDROSPHERE. What's very cool about this is a HYDROSPHERE, even though it's like a water ball, it is a physical gem, kind of like Glacial Cascade, right? And the thing with this is that depending on what element you put, it determines what element it's going to convert to. And then once you apply that element, it will then start pulsing and just doing damage, right? So you can only do basically freeze, shock, sap, and brittle. The majority of us are going to do shock, and freeze is easy to do, as sap and brittle kind of difficult to attain on its own. But in this build, since we're using Glacial Cascade, we're going to be freezing. What ends up happening is that, you guys can see here, that's what happens when you freeze it. It starts pulsing for cold damage. Fizz to cold, by the way. So you can skill fizz damage, kind of like Glacial Cascade, and it works very one theme. Now you're probably wondering, how did it actually freeze? Well, here's the beautiful part about cast on crit. Since I'm using Barrage and I'm using Ascendancy chant, every time that I attack, I will be barraging the ball. And since I have a device and a lot of cold damage things, my barrage is cold damage, and since it's critting, it will freeze the HYDROSPHERE guaranteed, thus it would always pulse. And if that doesn't do that, let's say I hit a mob instead, I'll crit, the Glacial Cascade will then proc from cast on crit, and that will then freeze the ball, and it's very well. Now, what makes this so broken, other than the fact that you can move it around like crazy using cast on crit, which is actually fantastic, is that it doesn't reappear, guys. It drags. Meaning anything in this area that I'm moving here will get hit by the ball every time you move it back and forth, which is absolutely insane. So let me show you. I can't show you like a tier 16 map because I can't buy a level 20, 21 HYDROSPHERE the day that it came out. Sorry about that, guys. But I can show you a quick little map. You see here, it keeps dragging. So I can go over here and just drag the ball. No matter how far I am, I can just drag the ball. Drag the ball. So it literally feels like you're just like, hey, catch. Here, catch this HYDROSPHERE. It literally just went through the wall. What? All right. It's just cool. It's just cool. I don't even care if it does bad damage because Glacial Cascade's there. But it's just very, very cool. And you basically just drag it around. And you don't have to worry about whether you're igniting or not. It's just always going to do damage, you know? You're dragging it. You're constantly hitting the ball with your barrage. And if that's not doing it, your Glacial Cascade's doing it. Right? It's very, very, very cool. And I like this a lot. It's a lot of fun moving it around. It looks like you're like kind of like a magician. I enjoy it. I enjoy it a lot. right? So it's very, very cool. And I believe you guys will enjoy this. And of course, if, you know, push comes to shove, you can always just take out HYDROSPHERE right here and use a dual Glacier Cascade, and you get something like this, right? And now, of course, will do a lot more damage. Because Glacier Cascade, by nature, does auto damage with its last hit, does 100 or 200% more damage modifier, right? Yeah, so its final burst deals 200% more damage. And that's what's kind of lacking from HYDROSPHERE, in my opinion, for it to be something crazy. It just pulses, right? It does apply a little bit of exposure, but when you have Frost Bomb, it's not really needed, right? So either way, that's basically the gist of the build. It looks very, very cool. So let's go over the PoB real quick and how you would play something like this and what sort of items you would want. All right, so here we are in the PoB. Something very, very simple. It's actually your generic cast on crit assassin. And we do focus a decent chunk into defense because you don't want to die as an assassin. Since assassin usually gives you a lot more, you know, things like evasion. Even though they took it out, I don't know why. You know, it used to give you a bit of evasion and dodge. You still want to do this because as a bow character, it's kind of your main defense, right? So what you want to do, of course, is pick up Wind Dancer, Phase Acro, and Acrobatics. And here we have 5.3k with a lot of dodge and things like that. Right? You can also use Vulgrace if you so desire. And we're going to have a lot of evasion in order to tank things. The Wind Dancer was an amazing addition into the evasion build, because that means that you're going to have a lot more evasion when you do get hit. But when you don't, you can tank it because you take 20% less damage taken. This goes in hand very well with, you know, things like that chest. I completely forgot the name of the chest piece. The Kintsugi, there you go. That makes ties also with Wind Dancer, makes you take less damage. Things like that. But otherwise, you have 5k life, you have a lot of dodge, right? And it's your generic build. We have a lot of fizz damage, a lot of life, a lot of crit, right? You take Phase Acro. We do have Cold Conduction. I usually combine this with Storm Rider, the Cluster Jewel, because the way that it works is that Storm Rider gives you a power charge when you shock. And when you have Cold Conduction, when you chill, you also shock. And then Storm Rider will then give you the power charge. As an assassin, you already have power charge on crit. You don't really need that anymore. So you only need a one notable Cold Conduction, making the build pretty cheap. But of course, you can always put something else here, like Cold Damage, whatever other cluster you can find. But Cold Conduction by itself, just for the shock, is definitely worthwhile. And of course, you can put a Jewel. Things like that, right? And the rest of it is just basically life, you know, Critical Strike Multi, Critical Strike Trance, and Spell Crit. Very, very, very simple. Nothing over the top. We do have a little bit of AoE, since both Glacier Cascade and HYDROSPHERE are both AoE spells. Now, for your Ascendancy, obviously you're an assassin. You want to pick up first Mistwalker for the elusive. They increase the effect of it and reduce the dodge, sad face, and the attack speed, sad face. But, and more movement speed, I guess. But we still overall lost movement speed because they removed the movement speed from opportunistic. But it's still a great note as it gives you 25% more damage. Either way, back to the order of it. It's Mistwalker, then you want Unstable Infusion for power charges, then Deadly Infusion for your crit chance, and then lastly, in your Uber Lab, you want to get Opportunistic or the extra damage with basically one more rare or unique enemy nearby. For bosses, basically, and that's pretty much it. All right, so let's get over the skills. So the auras you're going to be using are Herald of Ice, Hatred, since they're both, you know, ice spells. You want that clear from Herald of Ice. And using Hatred because it gives you more cold damage and extra cold from your physical. And since both skills are physical, like I said earlier, very good as an aura. It's probably your best aura by far, giving us easily 41% more damage. Ridiculous. You're going to combine this with a level 3 Enlightened. You want to use a Precision to cap your accuracy. Make sure you always do this, that when you're playing a cast on crit build, your accuracy for your barrage, spells don't have accuracy, remember that. Your barrage accuracy has to be capped, right? So we use Precision. On top of that, we also have a War Banner. Now, we're going to be using a bow for our 6th link as our main, you know, cast on crits, and our helmet is the other 4 link for the HYDROSPHERE. But that leaves us with our chest piece 6th link. And since there's not really anything else we could want to use, we don't really need anything for clear and single target. We have both best of both worlds in that scenario. Your chest is kind of available to put whatever you want for it. So in this scenario, I did put a 4 link and a 2 link, and it's just utility. So here we have an Arcanist brand with Frostbomb and Assassin's Mark. Frostbomb lowers the res by -25 and lowers their life regen, which I've heard is really good for the Maven fight since she does regen life. And then the Assassin's Mark for a lot more crit and crit multi for the spells. Very good. Also for the attack, allows you to crit more, right? I put Bone Cheer here simply because it says enemies in chilling areas and 40 kills, which is Frostbomb, right? Have cold damage taken increased by 2 effect. Might as well, right? I don't know if it really adds any damage. The PoB says nothing, but I think it should. Otherwise, I think it's very cool. Excuse me, that's my phone. Right? And then the last 2 sockets is just basically the War Banner for more, of course, accuracy, because it gives you 21% increased accuracy. It's only 10% reservation. And Vulgrace for the extra dodge. We're not using Grace, we're only using Vulgrace, right? So don't try to use Grace, it won't fit. For your movement, you're using Dash, Second Wind, Arc Insert, Steel Skin. Arc Insert's mainly there just to extra 10% more damage, and Steel Skin just to give you that extra buff. I know level 20 most likely won't have enough strength to, you know, level it up, So just level it up as high as you can. Simple as that. I try to get strength on your pieces of gear, not your tree, just your gear, to see if you can get this as high as possible for the extra, buff HP that it gives you. Very, very nice. It's an instant skill, so you can put it on your walk, so you can always have this up while walking. Your helmet's going to be concentrated effect, hypothermia, cold pen is where your hydrosphere is going to be, as we constantly, saw it. We move it around with every time we attack. And here, basically, you can either put control destruction if you so desire. You can put inspiration, because we do have inspiration in our 6th link, right? Things like that. Whatever is showcase, if you want to really mess around with the gem swapping of increased AoE and concentrated effect, you can do that as well. I don't think it's really required, so you can probably just put inspiration and be done with that. Things like that, right? You can also put control destruction, like I said earlier. But do not put elemental focus, because then it won't, freeze, and then you can't do the Herald of Ice pops. I don't recommend that. As for your 7 link, right, you're going to be using Glacial Cascade, Inspiration, Concentrate Effect with Barrage, Hypothermia, and Cold Penetration. You can also use Control Destruction, but I do not recommend it on your bow, because it reduces your base, reduces your crit by your base crit. And that's really bad, because it does affect attacks. Even though the skill itself supports, gives more spell damage, the minus crit does affect your attack and reduces your attack crit, which is really bad. So stick to this, right? And if you don't have the bow with the extra cast on crit, I'll go over that very quickly, then take out Cold Penetration for cast on crit. And if you have a 5 link, take out Hypothermia and Cold Penetration for cast on crit. But basically, is get right into the gear and explain what the 7 link means. If you get a Shaper Bow, usually a level 75 or higher, you can get Socketed Gems have level 18 or 20 cast on crit on the bow itself. And that does give more damage. Cast on crit is like a 30% more or 35% more spell damage multiplier. So this means it's a 7 link. And you can also find this very easily, right, while you're basically buying gear, because it's just a Shaper Bow. It doesn't have to be too high level. And you're only looking for 3 mods, really. The cast on crit, the attack speed, and crit chance. And one of these is going to be crafted. So if you get attack speed, craft crit chance, ideally. But if you get crit chance and craft attack speed, nothing crazy there. I recommend getting attack speed because the crit chance modifier is very cheap, while the tier 1 attack speed modifier on the bench is about an exalt. But of course, we do have Harvest now, and you can always crit speed and things like that if you find one. Or maybe you can buy one from somebody else, because you can buy these crafts from other people, right? So basically, that's the gist of that. You want a Shaper Bow. I recommend a Spine Bow or Bone Bow. Doesn't really matter what base type it is, as long as it's this type of bow, the spine or the bow, a Bone Bow, because they have a 1.45 attack speed and a 6.5 crit chance. When you put attack speed and crit chance on those, the attack speed goes to 1.5, which is more than enough, and the crit chance goes over 8, which is very, very solid. All right, that's all you need. As for your quiver, you want crit chance, crit multi, life, and whatever else you need. Now there is a Vild mod. You can try to find it for somebody in Global A20. You can buy it. It gives you a little bit of crit chance, but most importantly, it gives you a chance to get a Frenzy Charge on crit, which gives you Frenzy Charge very easily on top of your power charges. Highly recommended if you can find it. It's not too costly of a craft. It's just a kind of a rare mod to find on your own. So I recommend going to Global A20 and asking for somebody to craft this on your quiver, right? Make sure to tip. Be nice. And then your helmet, as I said earlier, is Ascendancy chance. Try to get an Ascendancy circlet with good attack speed and cast speed as that rolls forward. Then you want to upgrade that with the Prophecy, the Schema's Feather. You can always wiki it if I got that name wrong, because I don't remember the name by memory. And it just gives you the trigger socket to spell when you attack. Very good. That's all it is. As for your chest piece, you basically just want life and res. If you have the money, try to get an Elder or Hunter chest piece with attacks have extra or additional critical strike chance. Pretty much the gist of that. Your gloves, accuracy is very important, so I recommend getting a decent chunk of accuracy, life, res, and then craft attack speed is very cheap. Do not try to look for attack speed, as it's very difficult or more expensive, in my opinion, obviously, in the market, if you find attack speed on the glove itself already. Don't recommend that. Just look for an open suffix on your gloves. For your boots, you basically want life, res, and movement speed. Nothing crazy there. Now for your ammo, you can just use a life, cold damage, and crit multi amulet, but the best ammo you can buy once you have the money is a Pandemonious. Pandemonious gives you cold damage and a lot of penetration, especially if you catalyze it with elemental catalyst, I believe. I don't remember what it's called, but it's the one that modifies elemental modifiers, right? And it's very, very good. It is the best in slot. You do lose a little bit of life, but you have more than enough life with things like, all the life nodes on a tree. But until then, you can just use life and crit multi and cold damage, things like that. For your other ring, you want a Circle of Fear ring. It is a sensitized ring. It's unique. hard to find early on, but what it does give you is reduced mana reservation for health device and cold damage while affected by health device. And it's also modifiable using an elemental catalyst. Until then, just use a life and res ring, or if you need accuracy, get something like this with accuracy, life, and res. Try to get some stats if you need it, like int and strength, if you so desire. For your Stygian Vise, you basically just want life and resistances. And then if you can craft cooldown recovery, go for it. Nothing really important though, you don't really have to. But do not craft elemental damage of attack skills. You're not attacking, the spell's doing the damage. Don't craft that, it does nothing. You can craft, there's another bench craft that gives you damage. So go for ahead and use that if you have the open socket and you don't really care about cooldown recovery. As for your Abyssal Jewel on that Stygian Vise, you basically want life and attack speed if you crit recently. But try to get fire damage to spells while wielding a two-handed weapon. A bow is a two-handed weapon, ironically, but it makes sense. And the reason why you want this is if you have a Cinder Swallow, when the spell crits, it would also ignite when if it has a little bit of fire damage, and then that'll make your Cinder Swallow allow you to do more damage. Now, on the topic of Cinder Swallow, it is a very expensive, basically flask if you get it with critical strike chance during class effect. It is very worthwhile. I highly recommend it. And try to get the crit chance one, as it is the best one for the build. Right, increases the crit for your attack and your spells. Very, very handy, and does give you one slot. But if you don't have this, just use a normal silver flask with reduced charges used with either whatever immunity you want, curse, bleed, what's the other one, freeze, things like that. Right, we have a diamond flask of chill, or basically immunity to chill, quicksilver movement speed, and a Xeri's Promise. You can put a Wise Oak also, but I believe a Xeri's Promise is better. And then there's also an eternal flask of immunity to bleed, things like that. Now, for these cluster jewels over here, I do have another Abyssal Jewel with its life and attack speed, but with blind. Since we're actually attacking despite being a spell build, you do want to get a chance to blind enemies on hit with attacks. Since barrage hits quite a bit, you're going to be blinding them very often, and it's free 50% evasion. Highly recommended, and it's dirt cheap to buy one of those, right? And the rest of it is just, jewels with life, spell damage, area damage, cold damage, or crit multi with culticos, things like that, right? That's the gist of that. That's pretty much the entire build. Nothing too crazy, right? The ore is a very simple. Until then, while you're leveling, you can use a Death's Harp instead of a Spine Bow, the one crafted, and that's just going to be more than enough. Just make sure to put cast on crits on your bow itself until you get one of these. But trust me, these are very easy to craft, especially with Harvest, since it's considered a crit modifier, right? So other than that, please let me know. For leveling, you're really just going to be using a spell, since the majority of things is cast on crit. Cast on crit damage is spell damage. So as an assassin, just use Freezing Pulse, level it up until you can use the Death's Harp, and you get cast on crit in Act 4. It's in Act 4. And then in Act 4, you can decide for yourself whether you want to keep self-casting using Freezing Pulse or whatever spell you desire. Maybe even using Hydrosphere and Glacial Cascade, right? Since you're going to be leveling those up anyway. You decide, do I keep self-casting, or do you want to try using a Death's Heart with a 5 link and using cast on crit? It might feel really clunky until later on, but you do you. Just figure out what is best. I highly recommend using Freezing Pulse, and then use Hydrosphere and Glacial Cascade in combination. Either cast on crit or spell, or self-cast. Other than that, for your bandits, obviously, since you are going to be a crit build, you want Alira. It's up here, by the way, if you guys don't know this. In PoB, if you look at the bandit all the way up here, you will see that I have all the bandit choices, and we pick Alira. And then for your Pantheon, there's really nothing that's kind of crazy. I highly recommend getting Soul of the Brine King, and then the other one's Moshikari, just for reduced chaos damage taken and poison resistance. And that's pretty much the gist of this. Now, if you look at this gear, it's completely different because this is an old build, so don't rely on this. Make sure to rely on the PoB. If you have any questions, please make sure to go into my Discord and things like that. And with that, guys, if you have any questions, please let me know, as I have not made this build completely, but I already know exactly how it's going to feel and how it's going to basically work out. But if you guys do try, please let me know how HYDROSPHERE works until I do the build myself, because I'm probably going to do this next or whatever I feel is best. But this looks really, really fun, and I'm very curious to see how it's going to perform myself. Right, so I hope you guys enjoyed the video. If you have any questions, please join the Discord. Follow me on Twitch. If you guys want to see all the other build guides before the the build actually comes out on YouTube, you can go to my Twitch chat, type !3.13, or go to my Discord and the announcement page. You'll find an announcement with that, basically that tag of the build that I made. But other than that, if you guys like the video, please make sure to smash the like button. And yeah, thank you guys so much for watching, and I'll catch you in the next little build guide before we go into the massive ones. So catch you guys later.